Hello and welcome to another episode of the UpLevel Martial Arts Community Podcast. My name is Jason Guyton. Thank you for joining us. In this episode, we speak with Mr. David Clements, who had an early influence and is an ongoing supporter of the mission of UpLevel Martial Arts. Without further delay, here's my interview with Mr. David Clements.
Mr. David Clements, how are you, sir?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. I'm actually very excited. I've actually been looking forward to meeting you and speaking with you about doing one of these podcasts and the UpLevel community at large for quite some time. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about your connection to UpLevel that a lot of people in the community, including myself, are currently not aware of. Like, how do you tie into it? I've heard your name a few times, and I kind of what I've been calling you is the godfather or spiritual founder of UpLevel. So can you give us a little bit of background, your connection, and your role in the UpLevel community?
Yes, sir. All right, very good. Well, Mr. Sam Wiggert started with me when he was about 12 years old. And he was in the library. I had one of my instructors that worked for me at the time, met his mother in the library in the town, and invited the mother to have her family take martial arts, and she thought it'd be a good idea for Sam, and he started taking martial arts at 12 years old. And it's interesting. I want to make sure I say this so people that listen to this and they're helpers in class, they're part of the CIT program. We call them STORM, Special Team of Role Models. But if you guys are helping in class, never underestimate the power that you have or the influence that you have on other students. At the time, my mother worked for me, and part of her job was to call absentees and just encourage people to keep attending classes. And when he got his yellow belt, he went through a spell where he wanted to quit. And typically, statistically, in the first 90 days, and brown belt is about when people quit, all right, just statistically nationwide. And I guess, had reached that point, and I told Mom, I said, go ahead and give him a call. And she did, and she talked to his mother, and she talked to him and said, hey, you committed yourself to being in the black belt program. You committed your blah, 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 blah. She gave the mother speech. You don't have to want to do it. You just need to do it. And so he stuck it out, and he got up to red belt. And at red belt, close to brown belt, he got another one of those, I'm just not sure it's for me. And there was a girl in our STORM program or CIT program named Katie Raspberry. She was about 15 at the time. And I told Katie, I said, go over and talk to Sam because I think he's having a difficult time right now. And I just remember them going against the wall there. They sat in a chair and she started talking to him. And I'm not sure what was exactly said, but she encouraged him to continue to at least get his black belt. And because of that, Mr. Uyghur has 7 martial arts schools, and if that STORM person hadn't been that influential on him, he probably wouldn't have completed it. And just so appreciative of people that are in our STORM CIT programs. Okay. Never underestimate the influence that you have. But I've known Mr. Uyghur for a long, long time, since he was a little kid, and he's done fantastic. And I knew that he would do good, and that was the school that I eventually sold him. I sold him his first martial arts school. And Grandmaster Arthur and I kind of had a meeting. We talked about it. And, I believe that it was a good plan for him at a young age, at 15 years old, because he had a great relationship with his dad, who was very meticulous, and he had a good work ethic, a strong work ethic. And I remember one time I was out of town. I was coming into town, and the road came right by the studio, and the lights were on. It was 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, man, why are the lights on? So I zipped in there real fast to see what in the world was going on. And there was young Mr. Uyghur. And I don't know how old he was at the time, but he was a teenager. And it was 11 o'clock at night, and he was still working. And he was working on his paperwork. He was working on things that he needed to do, the busy work. And that was impressive. But what was even more impressive was the fact that he was sick as a dog. He was as white as a sheet, but he was in there doing what needed to be done, So I just knew that he would be successful. He just has that drive. So
that's fantastic. I've been really surprised at the ages when I find out how old people that are in the CIT program, people that are instructing me. I mean, I'm knocking on the door of 50 years old, and here I am floundering around doing my best in the class and receiving instructions from 13, 14, 15-year-old students. And just the level of maturity that I've seen and noticed there, it's really unparalleled. And it's a tremendous thing to behold from. I still consider myself an outsider, even though I'm like 70% of the way.
Right.
Even though I'm doing the podcast, I still feel like a visitor in this world, and
Sure.
I'm still learning a lot.
Sure.
But just the people that are fully all in the CIT program, that are instructing the classes, getting involved, being part of the UpLevel Reach program, and being way immersive in it. It's just incredible, the life lessons that, for lack of a better word, these young folks are able to learn in this environment. And
Yes.
those lessons, man, can go well beyond the classroom, as you
Right.
very well know.
And it's so impressive from a parent on the outside that has an 8, 9-year-old saying, I want my child to be like that. We have several instructors from a school that we kind of inherited during COVID. And, they're 16, 17, and 18 years old. They've been doing martial arts since they were 3, 4, and 5. And just that tremendous foundation. And now they're teaching classes in our schools and doing different things. Our younger the parents of our younger students really look up to them, and our students do too. They want to be part, and especially teenagers. Teenagers are all about social, being social, being with each other. And when you got a good group that are not like idiots on the weekend, then you got a good culture in your school. That's what we want to guard against. Because I've worked with kids for over 30 years, and I have this saying. When they turn 13, they lose half their brain, and then when they go to college, they lose the other half. And when they start working for a living, then they start getting it back.
This is true. It's interesting that you said that from the parent's perspective. My son is actually 8 years old and is a student and made his dedication to become black belt. He's kind of tapered off, and I'm hoping he makes it back into the program at some point. Right. But what you touched on is very key to how I want him to be as a young man growing up. And I'm seeing the attributes and the characteristics that I want him to adopt in the program more so than,
right.
So you nailed it right on the head with, these are tremendous role models, and there's no reason that anybody can't be like them, even somebody that's a little bit older, such as myself.
Right. And it's a lot different when a parent says it, and then they have a karate instructor saying it, like the old man, Master Clements. And then you have a Katie Raspberry, who I talked about earlier, saying it to young Mr. Wigger. You know what I mean? It has that impact when they have their own peers talk to them, and influence them.
Fantastic. Well, then I need to pull somebody aside and have them speak with my son.
That's right.
Indeed. So obviously you've built a career and built a career on martial arts. So it's been, of course, professionally rewarding for you, but overall, what has martial arts meant to you in your life?
Well, for me, I believe, I would say it goes to self-worth. I mean, it really feeds that part of you. As a young man, and I started off not knowing what I was doing. I mean, my wife had a stroke in our first year of marriage. Left side of her body was paralyzed for a while. We had huge hospital bills while they're trying to figure out what was going on. And one of my friends said, "Oh, you got your black belt. Why don't you teach karate?" And started teaching martial arts. Had a whole bunch of students before I even know it. Bought a warehouse, 7,000 square. No, I didn't buy a warehouse. I rented a warehouse. We renovated it. 7,000 square feet. In a year and a half, had over 300 students. Didn't know what I was doing. Had 7 people on payroll and going bankrupt. So there's a big difference between teaching and the business aspect, right? And so it took me years to understand that business aspect. But as a young man, when I started on this journey, I read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, who is, I love anything he writes. And one of the exercises, and I think it's the second or the third habit, is start with the end in mind, is you imagine yourself at your own funeral, and you just imagine what people might say when they come up and they talk about you. And as a young man, I did that. And I mean, I seriously did. I mean, I laid in the bed for probably a good solid hour and just imagine who would be there, who would say what, etc. And the theme that kept coming up over and over and over again was that he made a difference in people's lives. He made a difference. He made a difference. And because of the way I grew up, I came from a somewhat of an abusive household. My dad was kind of a mean man. And so I had that savior syndrome, that complex, and I want to save everybody. I want to rescue everybody. So I think that ties into the way I'm wired, but I just wanted to have that big impact on people. And I was able to do that through the martial arts. So every night I lay my pillow on my head on my pillow at night, I know that I made a difference. And we have an exercise that we do in our storm program when they first started. When you go to bed at night, you ask yourself the question, what did I learn today? And what kind of impact did I have? All right. How did I influence somebody? When you wake up in the morning, what am I most excited about? What am I most proud of? And so it's that constant cycle of feeding yourself and why you're put on this earth. And for me, I think I'm a natural born teacher, and I just use martial arts from that teaching aspect, but to influence people. And I think for me, that's been my greatest reward from the martial arts. And from a physical perspective, it keeps a body young. Now I'll be 58 years old in 2 weeks. And so I'm almost 60. And so, man, I feel it sometimes. But I had one of my young instructors that I work with, he was telling me the other day, he said, Master Clements, I had a guy your age come in and he's sitting behind a desk his entire career. And I looked at him and I looked at you and I said, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life, because when I get your age, I want to be like you. And so it's kind of, not that I'm in super great shape or anything, but the idea that I'm still at that phase where I can influence young instructors and have something to look up to from a physical perspective. So from a self-fulfillment, physically, emotionally, that self-worth, that means a lot.
It does. And I mean, I work at this desk 8 hours a day from 8:30 to 5:30 every day. This just happens to be also where I do the podcasting, and not being able to get up, as an aging person, because I'm eligible for my AARP card next year. It has been a tremendous resource to use and get up and move your body. So I can only imagine the impact it would be from an instructor level, and how much you guys have to move around in order to lead those lessons.
Right. And, me being the grand poopah, I can walk around, just tell people what to do, but just doing that burns calories, so that's good.
Hey, every step or every mile counts.
That's right.
Now, have there been times in the lessons and throughout the history of your career that your martial arts training has had a direct impact on the safety and well-being of people?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I over the years, and I've been teaching this professionally well over 30 years, and I've had 9 females attack my female students, and they've all been able to defend themselves. One woke up, the guy jumped on top of her in the bed with a ski mask. He was waiting inside the house, and I mean, just all of a sudden she's awake and he's on top of her. And she has a handgun, 9mm on the bureau, but she can't get to it, and I've had 2 attempted child abductions, and they've been able to get away. So just from the standpoint of knowing that you're teaching stuff that works, teaching people to empower themselves is just rewarding in itself, knowing that from my history. Now, might I say too, that people that take martial arts, and I can't remember, and I don't really want to quote it verbatim. I know it's a low percentage, but I don't know the numbers right off the bat. I want to say something like 30% of people get assaulted in their whole life, in their entire life, but the percentage of martial arts students that get assaulted are so much less. And I think it's the way we carry ourselves and the confidence, because the lion doesn't pick out, as we say, the lion doesn't pick out the weakest and the sickest animal. He picks out the victim.
That perfectly hyperlinks to the story Mr. Ben Bond from Waxhaw said about he had 2 students that were being, I don't want to say stalked, but they had somebody walking behind them, and a young lady, 5'0", 100 pounds soaking wet, turned around and goes, "Can I help you?" He was telling us that story, and the guy was like, "Whoa, no,
yeah.
and out of there." So it definitely
that's right. They didn't expect that.
Exactly. So when you have that confidence and you carry yourself, it definitely makes an impact.
One time years ago, I had a student in class. His name was Gus, and he was a yellow belt, skinny, And I want to say he was in junior high school. I'm not sure how old he was. And I asked, people lined up for the class. I said, so how's your day today? Tell me something exciting happened in your day. And nobody was saying anything. He said, well, I got stuffed in a trash can again. And, he was kind of that skinny looking, awkward kid. And I said, what do you mean, Gus? He said, yeah, it happens almost every day. I was like, oh my goodness, are you serious? And I just wanted to cry. It just tore my heart out. And he stayed with me all through high school, got a second-degree black belt before he left. And phenomenal. By the time he got to high school, nobody picked on him. He wrote a book by the time he graduated high school and recorded 2 albums, playing the guitar and singing. And today he is working in the marketing department for a Major League Baseball team. So
Fantastic.
just that, and those success stories just happen so from a physical perspective, from an internal confidence, everything else perspective. Martial arts is just a tremendous avenue to, I always tell people it's going to enhance your character or change your character for the better. And it just does so much for people.
That's just tremendous. That's awesome.
Yes,
So
sir.
earlier we were talking, and you now live in South Carolina, my home state, the Sandlapper State, and
That's
you're
right.
down about 90 miles from where I grew up. You're down at Mount Pleasant, and you own Mount Pleasant Family Martial Arts. You also have a program called Malta. Can
That's
you kind of click into those and explain those?
Yes, sir. So Malta is basically an acronym for the Martial Arts Leadership Training Association. And it's basically a conglomeration of different schools that are licensed or associated with me. Right now we have 6 of them. We have another school opening up in August. One just opened up in Florida. And so these are schools that are doing our curriculum or loosely doing our curriculum, the business model, et cetera. But as I got, sooner or later, we all reached this realization that, where'd all that time go? And, how much time do I have left? And, I better start thinking about retirement. That's right. So knowing that I didn't want to be 70 years old running around kids, every day, although I like kids, don't get me wrong, I just don't have the energy to keep up with them, I wouldn't think, at 70 years old. So because of my lifestyle and because of my family, I'd always been in small markets. So as I understood demographics better and better, one of the girls in my association, she said, Master Clements, her dad lived in the Charleston area. And she goes, you need to look at the demographics down there. And I did and liked it. And so long story short, we had been looking at this market for a while. And I came down, bought a school from somebody. And it was not, eventually I came down to and then COVID hits. Then we grow, we open a second school and enlarge, grow to a bigger space in our first school. And it's just been a blessing. And then we've had more schools hop onto this association. So that's the story of Malta and how I got down here to Mount Pleasant. Although it's never the way you want it to work out. If you'll just indulge me a minute, you guys that might not be able to see this, we have, I tell my staff all the time, here's our starting point and here's our goal. I'm taking a sheet of paper, I'm going from one corner to the other corner. And sometimes our staff and young people will feel like, we're just gonna go in a straight line. But that line looks like that. It's all over the place.
Jagged, yes.
Well, what happens is when we look back where we started from, we might have reached our goal, but it wasn't like what we thought. And that's the same thing down here. And I'm sure Mr. Wiggert would tell you, from his first school to his 7th school, it didn't go according to plan, but we got there, right?
Indeed.
That's a lot.
Very much so. Very much so. That's awesome. You and I are connected on social media, I think through Instagram and Facebook. And I noticed that you do a lot of fishing. So can you talk about fishing a little bit? The
right.
zen, if you will, of fishing?
Well, I tried to leave martial arts twice and I keep coming back. And one of the times I left, was trying to make it professionally fishing, being a professional bass fisherman. Now, for me, that's the ultimate game. You're competing against an animal in another environment that you can't see, and you got to trick him and you got to do it better than anybody else. So for me, that's right. Yeah, it's not like sitting on the bank with a bobber. You're in a boat, and I won't take the time to kind of talk about everything there, but these guys that do it for a living, it's big time. A lot of money involved, et cetera. big competition. And, you get a group of men together, they're going to find a way to compete doing something. Who would have thought cornhole, right? But with fishing, for me, it's just being out there, just the solitude. I like those peaceful days, just me and nature and God, just getting away from everything. And I believe any type A person or a person that's a high functioning, high producing, you have to be on point almost 24/7, needs that outlet. And for me, my mom tied me to a tree when I was 3 years old, so I wouldn't fall in the creek, so I could take my little fishing pole with a bare hook and try to catch a fish. That's, so I've been doing it my whole life, and God hasn't seen the opportunity, or hasn't presented the opportunity yet for me to kind of do it full time. And now I'm past that age where I could really do it. But the point is, I like, that's my outlet. And so I kind of have a hobby. I have my own YouTube channel. I just kind of do that on the side.
So I have here that we do more than punching and kicking. Was that your writing or was that mine?
So I think that's mine.
Okay.
Well, you had that. Let me expand on,
it's a saying on the wall. That's where I got it. I scrolled through some of your social media postings, and in big bold letters, probably 2 feet high on the wall, is "We do more than punching and kicking." That's where I got that from.
Yeah. So I do more than punching and kicking is our byline. And what I mean by that is most schools have what we call a mat chat at the end of class or at the beginning of class. They have a word of the belt or word of the month, something like that. And a lot of schools do it kind of not so on purpose. I mean, we do it on purpose. It's required for the stripes on your belts to be able to quote the definitions. And we have a mat chat every class that has to do with the belt for that testing cycle. So we have words on each belt. We also have the 6 task program. So the 6 task program is 6 patches that they earn in order to get their black belt. The first one is 50 random acts of kindness, and they will earn a respect patch. So they go out and they record 50 acts of kindness. The most important team is the family. So 50 helps around the house. Teamwork patch, they record 50 helps around the house. And then perseverance, I pick out a technique for them to do, and they have to do it 1,000 times. So it teaches a kid how to set a goal and then break it down, 20 sets of 50, 25 each leg. And before they know it, they've accomplished it. And it's like, oh, wow, that was easy. Did it in 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever, however long it took. And so it's a life, each one of these are life lessons. Perseverance. Well, I did 1,000 spinning hook kicks for my whatever belt level it was. I'm sure I can do this, whatever it is.
Okay.
And so that's built on top of each other. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say that's kind of like the citizenship star programs that we have.
Yeah,
like,
probably very similar.
Yeah.
And then the last one is, and I'll skip to the last one. The last one is knowledge patched, and I have them read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, for adults. They got to do a book report on it. And then teenagers, the one for teenagers, and they have one for kids, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Kids. And then they have to do the book report. So that feeds into the we do more than punching and kicking. So I have one of my students starting to be a bully. And I had to sit him down in the office and have a little chit chat with him, took away his belt. He's got to earn his belt back. And I did the chair exercise. And I don't know if you have seen this or not, but I stood up in the chair and I said, "Hey, JR, I want you to pull me down." And so I said, "I'm going to resist, but you pull me down." I weigh 200 pounds. He weighed probably about 80. So I'm standing up in the chair. I'm 6 foot, and he's like, and he pulls me down. All right. Even though I was resisting, and he could do that because I was in the chair off balance. And I said, "JR, it's going to be, this is a life lesson I don't want you to ever forget. If you start hanging around the wrong people," and that's the reason he was starting to be a bully. He got a new set of friends. And I said, "It's a whole lot easier to pull somebody down than it is to pull somebody up."
Beautiful.
And then I pointed to the wall and I said, and I looked at his mom and I said, "We do more than punching and kicking." And I want him to remember that the rest of his life. And so that's another example of, it's a whole lot more than just punching and kicking.
Yeah, I actually appreciate the life skills, and I've never heard the term mat chat before, but I actually appreciate the life skills, honestly, more than I appreciate the punching and the kicking aspect. So your life skills on your wall are control, respect, discipline, knowledge, focus, courage, confidence, intensity, and honor. Whereas at at UpLevel, our life skills are integrity, gratitude, team spirit, patience, age-defying health, confidence, discipline, respect, and self-defense. So a lot of overlap there, and one that I see definitely in common is confidence. Can you go into your view of confidence?
It just so happens that is my favorite. Self-control, our definition of self-control is controlling your mouth and body. If you get in trouble, it's probably one of those two things, right? If you're really successful, it's one of those two things. So self-control, respect, self-discipline, doing what you know you should do even when you don't want to, which leads to our black belt word honor, which is integrity, doing what you know you should do even when no one's looking. So you can't have integrity without having self-discipline. So, and the way I set ours up is it builds on top of each other. And right in the middle there is confidence. And confidence, I remember years ago, and it made an impact on me. I was at some kind of a seminar, and the person asked the question, so as martial art instructors, how do you teach confidence? Because it's just kind of out there in the air. How do you really teach it? Well, I got to thinking about that, and over the years, and it's simple things. We say, we as people earn stripes or belts or things like that, but I mean, really put it into the context where somebody can understand it. And I think in order to be confident in anything, you have to have enough experiences to have enough successes to gain that confidence. So let's take, free throws for basketball. If you never did it before and you're doing 100 of them, you're probably going to hit 20 out of 100, maybe, right? The next set, maybe you get 30 or maybe 40. By the time you're on your sixth set of 100, maybe you're shooting 60%, and then pretty soon to 80%. So you have to have enough experiences to have enough successes to where you have that confidence. Well, when you're in a martial art class, let's think about it. How many first time experiences do we have? In the first class, you're in this strange place with people yelling and all these people and the energy going. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Hey, you got to get over that first. And then, you got your first weapon, your first spin kick, which for adults can be very intimidating, right? Jumping kick, self-defense moves. There's just so many firsts. If I was to go up to a mid-level student, let's say, purple, green, blue, somewhere in that level, and I say, I want you to do a front kick in front of 10,000 people. They'd probably be confident. They'd be able to do it. No problem. Just a front kick. Pow! Okay. Now I'm going to say for you guys, I think you guys do universals. So if I say, okay, in front of that's 10,000 people, I want you to do universals 1 through 5. Whoa, no, that's a little different because I haven't had enough of those experiences to get confident in that. And so I really believe that when you have enough of those first time experiences, when you try something else for the first time, well, I've been successful in these first time experiences, I can be successful in this first time experience. And so I go into it with a different attitude than, oh, I'm very intimidated by that first time experience, that new one. And I think that's where it transcends to other areas in your life. I'll never forget, I had a lady, one of my most proudest moments in giving a black belt. She was she suffered from anxiety, really, really bad. And she was a very professional woman, a professional businesswoman, and didn't like to be in front of people. And she was in the front row and just shaking. You could just see her whole body shaking when, she knew anybody was looking at her. And I think it was her yellow it's her orange belt. She came to me and she said, Master Clements, I don't think I can make it through graduation. I want to have a private test. Would you be okay with that? And I said, okay, Mrs. So-and-so, I'll give you a choice. I'm going to give you one private test between now and black belt. You can do it now or you can save it for later. Your choice. Think about it. Let me know. She came back to me a few days later and she goes, Master Clements, I think that would be lowering the bar. I'm going to go ahead and do the public graduation, blah, 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 blah. And back then we did more of a test than a graduation. And she did great. And when she tested for her black belt, I mean, I was bawling like a baby because she had overcome so much and did phenomenal on her black belt. And it was just one of those amazing success stories that ties back into that confidence. I mean, she wasn't confident, but she had to have enough of that experience and enough successful experiences to really get that confidence. And you can, I have a big speech, you know, a black belt, there's no excuse for a black belt to live a mediocre life. And that leads to that confidence, and it should transcend to other areas of our life. And it's sad if it doesn't, but a black belt should be confident in other areas of their life and be able to not live in a mediocrity would be the word.
Fantastic. Good. Thank you.
I started preaching there for a minute.
That's all right.
Excited.
Hey, pulpit's open. Open mic night.
That's right.
All right. Okay. Well, let's talk about you've already mentioned 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, which I read, I think, as a 16-year-old. And I remember,
yeah, great.
Yeah. And also about the same time I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Right.
But what are some other influential books or podcasts that you recommend or that you're currently reading?
Well, for me, I'm like more old school, from the self-empowerment, anything from John Maxwell, Covey. Principle-centered leadership is a great one. Anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur, you know, the E-Myth Revisited, The Millionaire Next Door. You know, back then when it was first written, I'm not sure if it's changed, but you know, the number one career field for millionaires were asphalt pavers.
Really?
You know, yeah. So it's just or asphalt contractors, I should say. So you just kind of take for granted some of the opportunities that are out there, and that millionaires aren't who we think they are.
Not at all.
I know that Dave Ramsey has, is it the Millionaire Next? No, not the Millionaire Next Door. Everyday Millionaire. Everyday Millionaire.
That's a recent publication, actually.
Right. Yes. So I like that. As far as other business things, I really believe, well, I like the Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm kind of like in the middle between Rich Dad Poor Dad, because I got really involved in that right before the bubble of 2008. And then the Dave Ramsey, you know, totally debt free. So I'm kind of torn between those two. But I tell you what, our young people need to know how to manage their money. And I think we do a really disservice in our school systems when we don't teach, first of all, when we don't teach how to recognize a threat from a self-defense aspect. Who's the bad guy? You know, who's, you know, when your little antennas go up, you know, who's that threat? And then I think it's a disservice to our junior high, senior high people when we don't teach them how to balance a checkbook, or we don't have checkbooks anymore, but balance the bank account or how money really works. You know, because our society is not doing well as far as handling money.
Not at all. And there are so many things that are designed to take your money from the apps that you sign up for that are free. But if you want to buy the next, you know, avatar or the next little specialty weapon or something like that, you got to spend 99 cents. You know, those 99 cents can add up.
When you are in debt, you are basically negotiating from a point of weakness.
Very much so.
You are very reactive as to what happens. You know, something happens on your car, oh, it's bad, right?
Yep, I've seen that and I've lived it. So you're speaking the truth here. You're speaking the truth here for sure.
I remember back when I first started in the business, I told you I didn't know what I was doing. I remember calling the bank every day. And back then it wasn't online and stuff like that.
Right.
But I remember calling the bank every day to see what my balance was. I mean, we've come a long way.
Very much so. Very much so. And there are so many tools out there for the new generation of people that, you know, there's no excuse. I was just telling somebody the other day, like, I am very, very envious of the amount of tools and resources and the instant knowledge that is out there and available from the internet.
That's right. And if our young people would listen to the older people that's been there, done that with the new tools, how much more efficient would they be?
Absolutely. I mean, if I had some of the podcast and if I had some of the podcast and instant information that is available right now, just with a quick Google search, there's no telling where I could be right now.
That's right.
And if I would have listened to somebody who was trying to drill some knowledge into me and I didn't pay attention because of my hard-headed self.
That's right.
You know, getting rid of the ego and things like that.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're speaking truth. I cannot argue in any way whatsoever. All right. So our coin term at UpLevel is the modern day black belt, living a modern day black belt life. What does living a modern day black belt lifestyle mean to you? in your words?
Well, I think if someone is a black belt, like I said before, I do that speech, there's no excuse for a black belt to live a mediocre life. And it should transcend into other areas of our life. If I was to do something outside martial arts, I should still put the same amount of effort in it as I would doing that form in front of everyone or teaching that class in front of everyone. Martial means military art, martial art, military art. And it was originally, every culture had something to defend the village or the country. Today, we think of martial arts coming from Japan, Okinawa, China, whatever, every country had them. And so the idea that our martial arts, from a physical perspective, it's designed to enhance the body and defend ourselves against the attacker, obviously, but we want to do it so much more from an internal benefit. So living in our modern world where military, we push buttons now and we can kill people in other countries. That's changed a whole lot. We still have hand-to-hand combat, don't get me wrong. But when I walk down the street or, my daughter walks down the street, I would hope that we're able to defend ourselves if we were to be able to be attacked. So in our modern day world, we still need that aspect. But even more so, since the percentage of martial artists that actually get attacked physically or assaulted are much less than the general population, then I think we need to also be aware that if we are black belts, we're not better than other people, but we should elevate ourselves to a different level to where we can transcend that confidence and that success in other areas of our life. And so we should have an attitude of being the best that we can be wherever we're at. And the best that we can be is not just, okay, best I can be in my business. No, it's the best husband I can be. It's the best father I can be. It's the best whatever. I'll never forget a scene in The Last Samurai where
Great movie.
If I remember the scene correctly, there was a guy cleaning the temple. And I know enough about the culture back in those days from my studies and things that you were born into that job. Basically, it's almost like a caste system. And his character was not developed, but it was shown by the way that he cleaned the temple. And I remember one time after watching that movie, I was mopping the mats and I was thinking, do I do this just to hurry up and get it done, or do I really do it right? And so when we do things as black belts, we should have our character come through no matter what it is. The samurai, some of the greatest warriors on the earth, were the best flower arrangers and the best poets, origami, just different things like that they would do. And I think part of that was probably to counterbalance the violence, because they were cruel people. I mean, they had stuff they did. I mean, they were warriors. But anyway, the point is that their character was also in those other aspects, not just the violent aspects. So I think a modern day black belt has to have that balance, home, school, work, everywhere.
Beautiful. I think Bruce Lee had a quote: "I'd rather be a warrior in a garden instead of a gardener in a war."
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Hey, so if somebody wanted to find and follow you on social media, how do they do that?
All right. Social media. I'm David Clements, is Clements, Clements. That's on Facebook. Instagram is David Clements. And I believe also on Instagram, it's the White Ninja. And that's my YouTube channel, the White Ninja Fishing. But you can do my name and I come up too. But David Clements, Clements.
Great. So at the end of every episode, we always ask about a closing thought, some kind of a question or a challenge or an observation to kind of tie everything together. So what is your elevator pitch or closing thoughts for this episode, Mr. Clements?
Well, I would encourage people, and I do this everywhere I go, every place I speak, to pour yourself into somebody. You never know what difference you're going to make in that person. When you're dead and gone, you're going to leave behind a legacy. And for some reason this year, it's been the death year for my family. We've had so many people pass away, or friends, and just different things going on. But when you're gone, you leave behind that legacy. And I know for a fact, the people that I poured myself into, it's made a generational difference. Because when you make a difference in somebody's life, you affect their children and the way that those children are being raised, which may affect the next generation. And so you want to create a legacy. And I would just encourage people to make that difference. And you might think to yourself, somebody's watching this, and well, I don't help out in the karate classes and I'm just kind of shy or whatever. There are ways to still do that. You know, you don't have to be in front of people. You don't have to be a charismatic teacher. You find that one person and just pour yourself into that one. There are plenty out there. You know, there are plenty of hurting people nowadays. And there are plenty of young people that are looking for mentors. And for adult males, especially, it is hard to make that transition from the 30s, 40-ish to the 50-year-old age where we are career, we're going, we're busting it. And then all of a sudden we're starting to lose some of that energy and things. And then our career's established. And now we turn into that mentoring part of that younger generation. Some people aren't quite prepared for that. So if we start mentoring young people younger, then as we get older, we're much better at it. And I would really encourage people to do that. There's a hurting world out there, and we need to do everything we can to help it.
Very much so. Well, Master Clements, thank you for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. Your wisdom, your experience, and your connection to the UpLevel community. And, you know, as I said earlier, you're the spiritual founder, or what I consider the spiritual founder. And so thank you for your influence.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir.
We want to give a huge thank you to Master David Clements for taking time out of his schedule to do this interview. We wish him the best of luck in his ongoing career as he expands his martial arts association and for his ongoing endeavor as a certified life coach. Thank you again.
This is Sam Wiegert, founder of UpLevel Martial Arts. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope you found it fun and educational. If you did and it added value to your life, please share this with a friend who you think might benefit, and please give us a 5-star review. Don't forget, work hard, become a black belt leader in your life, and we'll see you in this class very soon or in one of our online communities.
Be sure to find and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and always at our website, uplevelmartialarts.com.